Welcome to Sharing the Light, the Sunshine Cathedral's talk show webcast where we discuss theological, ethical, spiritual, and social issues with the cathedral's pastoral staff. Sunshine Cathedral is a metropolitan community church affiliated with the Center for Progressive Christianity. We're located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, we hope you will enjoy this episode of Sharing the Light. Hello and welcome to Sharing the Light. Today on Sharing the Light, we will be discussing Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins' book, Wrestling with God Without Getting Pinned. Old stories, new thoughts, and progressive spirituality. So, Dr. Watkins, you're a noted author now, and all that wonderful stuff that goes along with that. For this episode, we have a list of questions for you about your book that has been out for a little while now. And so, let me just start off by asking, what do you mean by wrestling with God?
Wrestling with God is, there's a story in the Bible about Jacob wrestling with a stranger. And at the end of that wrestling match, he says, I've wrestled with God. And I thought that was a wonderful metaphor for what progressive Christians have to do with Scripture, is they have to wrestle with a lot of the preconceived assumptions they've inherited about God as a judgmental being, or as a scary entity, or as sort of a tribal entity that prefers this religion or this group or this nationality all over others, or that prefers men to women or straight people to gay people, or there's so much of that. So much of our prejudices have been deified, and we say basically we worship our prejudices, and so people. For whom that no longer seems attractive or reasonable, they have to wrestle with that. And sometimes they give it up, sometimes they reinterpret it, sometimes they find a new religion. But whatever they do, it's because of a process of wrestling. And so what I've tried to do with Wrestling with God Without Getting Pinned is to talk about to deconstruct some biblical stories, to talk about them, to wrestle with them, so that they can be reclaimed and become meaningful for people who would otherwise be tempted to abandon them because they were oppressive or irrelevant. And so I'm trying to actually give the Bible back to thinking people, and maybe even challenge some others to, if you're using the Bible to sort of beat up other people, maybe rethink that and think that there are different ways that you can understand these sacred texts.
Now, Wrestling with God Without Getting Pinned is one of your 5 books, correct?
The 6, I believe.
One of your 6
yes.
books. So is this book serious or is it funny?
It's sort of both, I guess. The joy of the Lord is our strength, Nehemiah said. It's snarky. It's some tongue-in-cheek in there, but that's to sort of defang the Scriptures, to show these are ours, we can play with them. And so I think the intent is serious. The intent is to liberate people from fear, to liberate people from oppressive understandings of Scripture. And one of the ways that you can sort of defang or tame an oppressor is to laugh at it. And so, we make fun a little bit, we play with it, but that's in an attempt to reclaim it. So I think it's I think in MCC particularly, we have the gift of irreverent reverence, where one of the ways that we show reverence for what is ultimately meaningful is to approach it playfully. And I think that's some of what I've tried to do with Wrestling with God is, it's playful, it's snarky, but also important. And I think that we can laugh our way into some depth sometimes.
2 words that are on the front cover of the book is old stories.
Right.
What are the old stories?
Those are the stories from the Bible that maybe you think you knew, but if you haven't read them lately, or if you've never read them all the way through, or if you've never really thought about them critically, those old stories might seem like very new stories to you when presented one more time. And so these old stories are just the Bible that you may have thought you knew. Some of them may have even been some obscure stories that you've never even heard of, but there they are in the Bible anyway. And so these are old stories, just the stories from our tradition.
And it's old stories with a new thought to it. What's the new thought part of it?
The new thoughts are just the new way of looking at it, the new way of approaching it. And at the end of every chapter, there is a new thought, which is basically a prayer. It's a positive, affirmative prayer dealing with the topic that the chapters talked about.
And how does this book deal with progressive or promote progressive spirituality?
Well, the whole thing is about progressive spirituality. We're trying to make progress. We're trying to, instead of digress back to the 19th or 18th or 17th or 10th century way of understanding Christianity, we're trying to progress forward into a liberative, investigative way of practicing spirituality. And so that's the intent with every chapter of the entire book, is to promote a progressive way of dealing with spirituality.
Now, in your book, are you debunking or disrespecting Scripture, or are you saying we shouldn't take the Bible seriously?
There are, as others have said, and I'll say it too, you can either take the Bible literally or you can take it seriously. You can't take it seriously and take it literally because to take it literally means immediately you run into some problems that keeps you from taking it seriously. You can't take the two creation myths seriously if you're taking them literally, because they contradict one another. And they also contradict scientific understanding. So if they contradict what we've known for 150 years, and they even contradict each other, to take them literally is to then render the whole thing ridiculous and useless. And so I'm not trying to tell people not to take the Scripture seriously. In fact, I'm trying to get them to take it seriously by not pretending to take it literally. So I'm not debunking or disrespecting the Scriptures. I am debunking and poking fun at some of the ways the Scriptures have been presented or uncritically accepted.
Okay. This is a two-in-one question. Why did you write this book, and who is this book really for?
Well, this book, it was about 5 years in the making. I mean, it's not so big, but it's, I would write and put it down and then go back and edit, and write and put it down and go back and edit, and write and go. And so it took about 5 years. And it's, whereas my other books are all sort of devotional that you find on Amazon.com, they weren't as difficult, whereas this one took me a lot of time because there was a lot of wrestling in the Wrestling with God book. So I wrote it because sometimes there's just something in you that needs to come out, and sometimes that's a song, or sometimes that's a speech, or sometimes that's a dance, or sometimes it's writing, and I write, and so it was something that needed to be expressed, or at least that was my experience. Who it's for is for people who have been hurt by religion, or who have found religion to be irrelevant. They thought religion insulted their intelligence or their reasoning ability. And so this is a way of saying, well, let's look at it again. Let's laugh at it a little bit, and let's see if there's something in there to reclaim. And if you wind up saying, oh, the Bible is literature that can be meaningful to me after all, or religion is something that can be useful after all, well, then I hope that's a great gift. And then if you still wind up tossing the whole thing, well, you're no worse off than to begin with, and you read something that made you think for a minute. So the book is really for everyone, but especially for people who have been wounded or excluded or insulted by religion.
And what's the easiest way for everyone to get this book?
Amazon.com. It's Barnes & Noble. There's other online sellers, but Amazon, I think, is where most people go. Amazon.com, and you can type in Durrell Watkins, and all the books come up, or you can type in the title, which is Wrestling with God Without Getting Pinned.
Great. Well, congratulations to you on your latest publication, and we want to thank you for joining us here on Sharing the Light. Thank you for joining us for another great episode of Sharing the Light. Tell your friends about this online ministry, and when you're in Southeast Florida, make sure you worship with us on a Sunday at the 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. service. And now for a final word from our senior pastor, the Reverend Dr. Durrell Watkins.
Email me at durrell@sunshinecathedral.net if you have a religious question, or if you'd like to subscribe to our daily devotional magazine, Spirit and Truth. We'll send it anywhere in the United States for an annual donation of any size. You can also email us prayer requests, or you can make donations on our website, www.sunshinecathedral.org. You'll also want to check out our great performing arts series, religious education classes, conferences, and other exciting activities. For now, we wish you many blessings on your spiritual journey.